Hello, and welcome to this exciting special edition of part two of Colorful Attributes 24/7 Awakening News with a Red Pill newsletter. I am your host, to me. Let's jump right into the action. Matthew 10:16 says, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be therefore, when you go, wise as serpents and soft as doves." So, as a disclosure, to this end, we'll be covering one part of the first chapter of Mr. Freeman's book. Mr. Freeman offers a simple, hopeful explanation of polite and peaceful method of dealing with this topic, especially. So please take note that this is only for entertainment purposes only. This is not legal advice, and we're not covering the whole book. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm only telling you to dance. It's entertainment purposes only. This is every bit of refining, re-explaining, and reapproving on everything we learn out of this specific topic, talking about the law. So always be on your P's and Q's and studying everything that we're talking about here. Isaiah 11:2, and it reads, "And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of fear of the Lord." So once again, we find ourselves here again looking for the truth and looking for the polite understanding. And we find ourselves here with me, your host, to me, on this journey of understanding that we might be get to fulfill our hearts with the capacity to pass on some knowledge. Don't just learn this stuff for no good. The greater knowledge and the hope that goes with it and the peaceful truth that comes from God is the gift of living, peace, freedom, and praise to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So prepare yourself for this knowledge. Be available to hear what I'm be explaining here and reviewing over this part of Mr. Freeman's book, the UCC Connection. So trying to understand this most confusing topic of the state and the government and its complemented courts. I guess I'm trying to say that it's hard. So it's complicated. So it's difficult trying to learn this stuff on your own. It is hard to find information. So this is the exact type of information that they do not want you to know and understand. They are made of monopoly for making money off of our dumbfoundedness to understand the true nature and how the rules of the game that they're playing. So it could be quite confusing to most Americans, including myself, and it could be overwhelming and frustrated in times. So a lot of times we could find ourselves fighting with ourselves trying to deal with this and not knowing that the truth, that understanding is right in our breach. It's right in our breach. So whether we have help with the understanding is another whole thing. But we find out very quickly that our attorneys are not on the side of us like we think they are. But they learn to sell time through process and sell paperwork. They're about making money themselves. Hopefully you caught the part that you made a miss yesterday. If not, then hopefully you're picking back up for where I left off on part 1. But if you is beginning here, hopefully you go back and watch the first video, as it can help you understand what's going on now. So as you know, the buck stops here. We're gonna be on this ride together, but sooner or later I'm gonna have to get off and you're going to have to pick up the pieces. So pick them back up in Mr. Freeman book. We stop right at equity law. So equity law is which compel performance. It compels you to perform to the extent, even to the extent of the letter or any contract that you are under. So if you have compelled performance, there must be a contract somewhere, and you are being compelled to perform under the obligations of the contract. Now this can only be a civil act, not criminal. Equity jurisdiction, you cannot be tried criminally, but you can be compelled to perform to the letter of the contract. If you then refuse to perform as directed by the court, you can be charged with contempt of the court, which is a criminal act. Or seatbelt law equity law? No, there are no, because you cannot be penalized or punished for not keeping to the letter of a contract. Admiralty maritime laws. This is a civil jurisdiction of compelled performance, which also has a criminal penalties for not adhering to the letter of the contract. But this only appeals to international contracts only. Now we can see what jurisdiction the seatbelt laws and all traffic codes are under Admiralty law. So wherever there is a penalty for failing to perform, such as willful failing to file, that in the Admiralty maritime law, there must be a barred international contract in force. However, the court don't want to admit that they are open under Admiralty maritime jurisdiction, so they take the international law or law merchant and adopt it into our code. This is what the Superior Court decided in the Erie Railroad case, that the decisions will be based on commercial law or business law, and that it will have criminal penalties associated with it, such that they were instructed not to call it admiralty jurisdiction. They call it statutory jurisdiction. So the courts of contract, you must also have acts how we got into this situation. So where we can be charged with failing to wear a seatbelt and be fined for that. Is the judge sworn to uphold the Constitution? Yes, he is. But you must understand the Constitution in Article 1 gives us the unlimited right to contract as long as we do not infringe on the life, liberty, or property of someone else. So contracts are enforceable. And the Constitution gives two jurisdictions where contracts can be enforced: equity or admiralty. So we find them being in a statutory jurisdiction. This is an embarrassing part for the courts, but we can't use this to box the judge into a corner and in their own courts. We will cover this more later. So contracts must be voluntary. Under the common law, every contract must be entered knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally by both parties, or it is void. So enforceable. There are characteristics. It must be based on sustaining. For example, contracts used to read for $1 and other valuable considerations. I will paint your house. That was a void contract. The dollar was a genuine silver dollar. Now suppose you wrote a contract that says, for one Federal Reserve note and other considerations, I will paint your house. And suppose, for example, you paint the house the wrong color. Could you go into a common law court and get justice? No, you could not. You see, a Federal Reserve note is a cuttable $1, and as it's no substance in a common law jurisdiction, so that contract would be unenforceable. So talking about cuttable money is also cuttable court. So the word cuttable means something that appears to be genuine, but it is not. Maybe it looks like $1 and maybe it spins like $1, but it is not redeemable for the for law money. Only silver or gold it is colorful money. If a Federal Reserve note is used in a contract, then the contract becomes a cuttable contract. And cuttable contract must be enforced under a cuttable jurisdiction. So be creative. Federal Reserve notes, the government had to create a jurisdiction to cover those kinds of contracts, which are cuttable contracts that are so that they can be used. So we now have what is called statutory jurisdiction, which is not a genuine annual jurisdiction. For one, it's a cuttable jurisdiction. So that which is in appearance only and not in reality, what it is, what it purpose to be, it's counterfeit. So foreign have the appearance of truth. Well, Black Law Dictionary is the 6th edition. If you want more information on cuttable truth, so it is cuttable annual jurisdiction and the judge are enforcing, because we are using colorable money. So colorful annuity is not known as, it is now known as statutory jurisdiction. So let's see how we got under this statutory jurisdiction. Unformed commercial coding. The government set up a colorful law system to fit the colorful currency. It used to be called the law merchant or the law redeemable instruments, because it dealt with paper, which was redeemable in something of substance. But once the Federal Reserve note had become unredeemable, there had to be a system of law which was completely colorable from start to finish. So this system of law was codified as the Uniform Commercial Code, which is unformed commercial code. Which means it's a dress code for, of course, for your knowledge. So as has been adopted in every state, this is a colorable law in every state, and it is used in all the courts. So I explained one of the keys earlier, which is that the country is bankrupt and we have no rights. If the master says jump, then you better say, baby, how jump. Then the slave better do exactly what the master say, because the master had the right to chop off the head of the slave. So as the slave, we have no rights, but the creditors, which is our daddy, have to cover up that simple truth. So by creating a system of law called the Unformed Commercial Code, this colorable jurisdiction under the Uniform Code, Uniform Commercial Code is the next key to understanding what happened. How do we get in this situation? So contract or agreement. So one or the other. One is different from the other. So the difference between common law and unformed commercial code is that in common law, contracts must be entered into, 1, knowingly, 2, voluntarily, and 3, intentionally. So under the UCC, this is not so. First of all, contracts are unnecessary. Under this new law, agreements can be blinded, and if you're only exercising the benefits of an agreement, then it is presumptually or implied that you intend to meet the obligation associated with these benefits. If you accept a benefit offered by government, then you are obligated to follow to the letter of each and every statute involved with that benefit. The method has been to get everyone exercising the benefit, and they don't even have to tell the people what the benefit is. So some people think it is the driver license, the marriage license, or the birth certificate. I believe it's none of those things. So compelled benefit. So I believe the benefit being used is that we have been given the privilege of discharging debt with limited liability, LLC, included, um, instead of paying our debt. So when we pay a debt, we give substance for substance. If I buy a quart of milk with a silver dollar, that dollar bought the milk, and the milk bought the dollar. So so substance for substance. But if we use a Federal Reserve note to buy the milk, I have not paid for it. This is no substance in a Federal Reserve note. So it is worthless paper given in exchange for something of a substance value. Okay, of course, Congress offers us this benefit to discharge our debt. So that money created by the federal United States can be spent all over the United States of America. It will be debts, public and private. And the limited liability is that you cannot be sure for not paying your debts. You cannot be sued. So now they have said we are going to help you out, and you can just discharge your debts instead of paying your debts. When we use this cuttable money to discharge our debt, we cannot use a common law court. We can only use a colorful court. So we are completely under the UCC, using non-redeemable negotiable instruments, and we are discharging debt rather than paying debt. So a remedy and a recharge, a recourse. Every system of citizen law must have two characteristics, and that is a remedy and a recourse. So a remedy is a way to get out of under something, that law, and you recover your loss. So the common law, the law merchants, and even the Uniform Commercial Code all have a remedy and a recourse. But for a long time, we could not find them because it's dressed up. Remember, it's a dressed up code, so it's kind of like a Morris law. So if you go to a law library and ask to see the Uniform Commercial Code, they will show you a shelf of books completely filled with Uniform Commercial Code. When you pick one up, while you start to read it, it seems to be intentionally written to confuse people. So it takes us a long time to discover where the actual remedy is. So the recourse and our force in their UCC, they are found right in the first volume at 1-308 OLD 1-207 and 1-103. Remedy: the making of a void reservation of rights reserves whatever rights the person then proceeding, and prevents the loss of such rights by application of concept of waiver or and stop here. So UCC 1-308 OLD 1-2077. It is important to remember when we go into court that we are in a commercial international jurisdiction. If we go into court and we say, I demand my constitutional rights, then the judge will more likely say you mention the Constitution again, and I will find you in contempt of court. So then we don't understand how we can do that. So how could he get away with that? Here he swore to uphold the Constitution. So the rule here is you cannot be charged under one jurisdiction and defend under another jurisdiction. So for example, if the French government come to you and asks where you file your French taxes in a certain year, do you go to the French government and say, I demand my constitutional rights? No. The proper answer is, the law doesn't apply to me. I am not a Frenchman. So you must make your reservation of rights under the jurisdiction in which you are charged, not under some other jurisdiction. So in which the one you were in charge in. So in a UCC court, you must claim your reservation of rights under pursuit to their UCC 1-308 OLD 1-207 to say in a waivable right of claim is involved. The failing to make a reservation therefore causes a loss of the rights and bars it so a sentencing at a later date. So UCC 1-308 OLD 1-207-9. Remember that you have to make your claim known early. So further in it says the significance of the reservation, any explaining, inducting a intention to reserve rights is our prediction UCC 1-308 OLD 1-2074. So whenever you sign a legal paper that deals with Federal Reserve notes with FRN, you see it in all the banks, in any way, shape or manner or any form under your signature, right, without prediction, UCC 1-308 OLD 1-207, this reserves your right. You can show it 1-308 OLD 1-207 that you have significantly reserved your rights. So it is very important that do you understand just what this means. For example, one man who used this in regards to a traffic ticket was asked by the judge just what he meant by writing without prediction on UCC 1-308 OLD 1-207 on his statement to the court. Well, he had not tried to understand the concept involved, and he only wanted to use it to get out of paying a ticket. So he did not know what it meant. So when the judge asked him what he meant by signing in that way, he told the judge that he was not prejudiced against anyone. The judge knew that the man had no idea what it meant and fined him an additional $2,500 for a fraudulent defense. You must know what it means. So without prediction, pursuit to UCC 1-308 for more information on what it means. You must study it, brand it in your head. So make sure you understand it and know what it says before you walk in there and try to use that. So when you see without prediction UCC 1-308 in connection with your signature, you are saying, I reserve my rights not to be compelled to perform under any contract, commercial agreement, or bankruptcy that I do not entirely, knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally. And furthermore, I do not and will not accept the liability of the compelled benefits of any revealed contract or commercial agreement or bankruptcy. Actually, it is better to use a rubber stamp because this demonstrates professional that you have presently reserved your right. So the simple fact is that it takes a few days to get, takes several days to get, maybe several weeks, but to order one and get a stamp that shows you have reserved your rights before you have signed any legal document. So what is the performance of unrevealed commercial agreement? So when you use Federal Reserve notes instead of a silver dollar, this is why people are telling you to buy gold, buy silver. So it is voluntarily. No. There is a no lawful money. So you have to use Federal Reserve notes. You have to accept the benefits without choice. The government has given you the benefits to discharge your debt with limited liability. So you don't have to pay your debts. So how nice is that? You know, how good is that? It's a great benefit. But if you do not reserve your rights under 1-308 OLD 1-207-7, you are compelled to accept the benefits and are therefore obligated to obey every statute, ordinance, and regulation of the government, and at all levels of the government, and all levels of the federal, state, and every location, every corporate government, everywhere. So if you understand this, you will be asked to explain it to the judge. Well, you will be asked to explain this to the judge. So be prepared to explain it to the whole court, which you also need to understand UCC 1-103 also. So make sure you put that in your notes. So the argument and the recourse. So if you want to understand this fully, go to a law library and photocopy these 2 sections of the UCC Unformed Commercial Code. It is impossible to get it. So the instant version of Unformed Commercial Code, lawyers, comprehensive published company, you know. So but they made that terms real difficult to understand, especially on the fit for attorneys and lawyers too. So some of the law libraries will only have that West publishing version, and it's very difficult to understand. So in the instant, it is broken down with disclaimers into 10 parts, and most importantly, it is written in plain English, simple enough for a baby to understand. So recourse of this is that recourse in the appeals and from Universal Code at 1-103-6, which says that the code is contemporary to the common law, which remains in force, except where displaced by the code. A statute should be considered in harmony with the common law, unless there is a clear, negotiable intent to obligate the common law. So this is an argument we use in court. So the code recognize the common law. It is, if it do not recognize the common law, the government would have to admit that the United States is bankrupt and completely owned by the cartel of bankers, and it is completely and utterly belong to them. So called the cabal. But it is not a accident to admit this. So they're not going to admit this regardless. So the code was written so as not to abolish the common law entirely. So therefore, if you have not a significant, timely, and exact reservation of your rights at 1-308 OLD 1-207, may then instead that the statutes be constructed in harmony, so with the common law. So in the charge in the traffic, you may determine that the court produced the injured person who has filed a verified complaint. So if for example you was charged with failing to buckle your seatbelt, you may ask the court who was injured as a result of you failing to buckle your seatbelt. So however, if the jurisdiction wasn't listening, if the judge wasn't listening to you and just moves ahead with the case, then you will want to read to him the last sentence of 1-103-6. So you need to remember that one too, 1-103-6, which states the code cannot be read to preclude a common law action. So tell the judge, Your Honor, I can sue you under the common law for violating my rights under the Uniform Commercial Code. I have a remedy under the UCC to reserve my rights under the common law. I have exercised the remedy, and now you must constrain this statute in harmony with the common law. You must come forth with the damaged party, and if the judge instead on pursuing with the case just act confused and ask this question, let me see here, judge, if I can understand this, Your Honor. Has this court made a jurisdictional determination that the section of 1-308 OLD 1-207 and 1-103 of the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the system of law you are operating under, are not law before this court. So now, judge, it is in a lump now. So how can the court throw out one part of the code and uphold another? So if he answer you yes, then you say, I put this court on notice that I am appealing your jurisdictional determination. Of course, the higher court will uphold the code on appeal. So the judge knows this. So once again, box the judge into the corner. So practical application traffic court. So this is where we're gonna stop here, and we're gonna put back up on the last part of this part 3. Well, we just talk about the last thing that I just talked about, and we will end this episode at this point and pick up on part 3 of colorful attributes. And I hope to see you in the next video when I wrap up this topic on colorful attributes, and we'll see you in the next video.